The desperate plague, crimson waters of Aquatica Prime, churned with an unnatural violence that hadn't been seen in the planet's 3 billion-year history. Commander Thyra Oceandith pressed her webbed hands against the coral walls of the command chamber, feeling the vibrations of destruction ripple through the living city. Above her, through the crystal dome that had protected her people for millennia, she could see the nightmare that had consumed her world. The devourer horde moved across the ocean surface like a plague of living metal. Each creature was the size of a whale, but moved with the hungry precision of a shark. Their bodies pulsed with a sickly orange glow as they fed on everything in their path. They consumed the floating kelp forests, drained the coral reefs of their life force, and left behind nothing but gray, lifeless water. Thyra's gills fluttered rapidly as she processed the horror above. The Kalari had ruled the ocean worlds of this sector for over 10,000 years. Their biotechnology was legendary throughout the galaxy. They could grow starships from modified sea creatures, create weapons from hardened coral, and their cities were living ecosystems that healed themselves. But none of it mattered now. "Commander, the outer defense rings have fallen," reported her aide Nerian, his voice carrying the harmonics of deep sadness through the water. His normally bright blue skin had faded to a dull gray, a sign of extreme stress among their people. "The Devourers have consumed the Guardian Leviathans." Thyra's heart sank. The Guardian Leviathans were massive biomechanical creatures, each one the size of a mountain, bred specifically to protect Kalari worlds. They had never failed before. If the Devourers could drain even those ancient protectors, then nothing could stop them. "How long until they reach the deep city?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would not bring hope. "Perhaps 6 hours, Commander. Maybe less." Nerian's tentacles writhed with anxiety. "The Devourers seem to be learning our biosignatures. Each attack becomes more efficient than the last." Through the command chamber's living walls, Thyra could feel the pulse of the deep city around her. Thousands of Kalari civilians huddled in the lowest levels of their capital, 4 miles beneath the ocean surface. They had retreated here, believing the depth would protect them. But the Devourers had already proven they could survive in any environment. The Kalari had encountered the Devourer horde 6 months ago when they first appeared in the outer systems. At first, the High Council had been confident. The Kalari military had never lost a war. Their living ships could adapt to any threat. Their bioweapons could evolve to counter any enemy. But the Devourers were different. They weren't a natural species. Analysis of captured specimens had revealed that the Devourers were artificial parasites, created by some long-dead civilization as the ultimate weapon. They consumed the life force of organic matter and used that energy to replicate themselves. Worse, they shared a collective intelligence that allowed them to learn and adapt at an incredible rate. "Commander," called out Zara, the young communications officer, her voice tight with desperation. "I'm receiving reports from our remaining outposts. The Devourers have completely consumed the coral gardens of Reef World 7. The entire ecosystem is gone. They've also begun attacking the spawning grounds of Tidal Moon 3. Thyra closed her eyes and tried to center herself in the ancient meditation techniques of her people. The Kalari had always found strength in the rhythm of the tides, in the eternal cycle of the ocean. But even that comfort seemed hollow now as she listened to the death of her civilization. "How many of our people are left?" she asked quietly. "Across all systems, perhaps 40 million, Zara replied, her voice barely a whisper. "But the numbers are falling every hour. 40 million. Once, the Kalari Confederation had numbered in the billions. They had been one of the great powers of this galaxy sector, respected by all other species for their wisdom and their harmony with nature. Now they were facing extinction, and there seemed to be nothing they could do to stop it. "Commander," Nerian said suddenly, his voice carrying a note of desperate hope, "what about the old emergency protocols? the ones from the ancient wars. Thyra's eyes snapped open. She had almost forgotten about the deepest archive, the collection of knowledge from the early days of Kalari civilization when they had first ventured into space. Among those ancient records were protocols for the most desperate of situations. The Galactic Distress Protocol, she breathed. We haven't used it in over 5,000 years. The protocol was simple, but had never been activated by a major power. It was a call for help that would be broadcast to every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy, regardless of political alliance or past conflicts. It was considered a last resort, an admission that a species could no longer protect itself. The High Council would never approve it, Nerian said. They would consider it beneath our dignity. Thyra looked up through the crystal dome at the Devourers, feeding in the waters above. Their numbers had doubled just in the time she had been watching. Soon they would be strong enough to crack even the reinforced dome of the deep city. The High Council is trapped in the ceremonial chambers, 3 levels up, Thyra said grimly. The bioseals are holding for now, but they won't last much longer. If we're going to do this, we have to do it now. She swam quickly to the ancient communication array, a massive structure grown from modified brain coral that could send signals across vast distances. The array hadn't been used for emergency broadcasts in millennia, but the Kalari had maintained it out of tradition. Zara, help me configure the transmission array for maximum range, Thyra ordered. Nerian, begin recording our final archives. If we don't survive this, at least the galaxy should know who we were. As they worked, the water around them began to vibrate more violently. The Devourers were getting closer, their feeding frenzy creating massive disturbances in the ocean currents. Thyra could taste the chemical signatures of death in the water, the bitter flavor of a world being consumed. Array is ready, Commander, Zara reported. Signal will reach approximately 70% of known spacefaring civilizations within standard galactic time. Thyra activated the recording system and began to speak, her words carrying the weight of 10,000 years of Kalari history. This is Commander Thyra Ocean Depth of the Kalari Confederation, transmitting from Aquatica Prime. Our civilization is under attack by an entity known as the Devourer Horde. These artificial parasites consume all organic life and cannot be reasoned with or deterred. We have fought them for 6 months using all our resources and technology, but we are failing. She paused as another violent tremor shook the deep city. Through the dome above, she could see more Devourers arriving, their orange glow turning the ocean into a hellish landscape. We are requesting immediate assistance from any civilization capable of interstellar travel. We can offer significant rewards to those who aid us, including access to our biotechnology archives and territorial concessions. But more than that, we warn the galaxy that if the Devourers are not stopped here, they will continue to spread. No world will be safe from their hunger. Thyra looked around the command chamber at her remaining officers. They were young, far younger than they should have been for their positions. All the senior staff had died in the earlier attacks, leaving these barely trained civilians to coordinate their species' final stand. Our coordinates follow this message. We will continue broadcasting as long as we are able. To any who receive this signal, please remember that the Kalari tried to preserve the balance of nature in our corner of the galaxy. We hope others will carry on that mission when we are gone. She ended the recording and looked at Zara. Broadcast it on all frequencies. Maximum power. Keep repeating the signal until the array fails. Yes, Commander, Zara said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Message is transmitting now. As the signal raced out through hyperspace toward distant stars, Thyra allowed herself one moment of hope. Perhaps somewhere in the vast galaxy, someone would hear their plea. Perhaps someone would care enough to help. But as she watched the Devourers mass above their city, she knew that even if help came, It would probably arrive too late. The crystal dome above them began to show hairline cracks as the Devourers started their assault on the deep city. Soon, the last bastion of Kalari. Civilization would fall, and with it, 10,000 years of wisdom, art, and harmony with the natural world would be lost forever. Asterisk. But the signal continued to broadcast, carrying their desperate plea across the stars to anyone who might listen. And in that signal was not just a call for help, but a warning to the galaxy about the nightmare that was coming for them all. Asterisk. The unlikely saviors Captain Maria Santos stood in the cramped bridge of the ESS Determination, watching the alien distress signal play for the 15th time in the past hour. The translation matrix was still working on some of the more complex phrases, but the message was clear enough. An entire civilization was dying, and they were begging for help. "Captain, I've got confirmation from Earth Command," reported Lieutenant Alex Chun from the communications station. "We're the only human vessel within range to respond. The nearest Council fleet is at least 3 weeks away, even at maximum hyperspace velocity." Maria nodded grimly. 3 weeks would be far too late. According to the signal, the Kalari had maybe hours left, not weeks. She looked around the bridge at her crew of 30 humans, crammed into a ship that had been designed for scientific exploration, not military operations. The Determination was part of Earth's United Defense Force, humanity's first attempt at interstellar military organization. They had exactly 12 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels, and they were tasked with protecting a dozen human colonies scattered across nearby star systems. By galactic standards, they were barely worth noticing. "Dr. Wright, what's your analysis of this devourer horde?" Maria asked the ship's xenobiologist, a thin man with intense eyes who had insisted on joining the mission despite having no military training. "Fascinating and terrifying," Dr. James Wright replied, pulling up holographic displays of the data they had extracted from the Kalari signal. "These creatures appear to be artificial biological weapons, designed to consume organic matter and convert it into more of themselves. It's like a cosmic cancer. Can they be stopped?" asked Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez, looking up from the environmental systems she had been monitoring. "Everything can be stopped," Wright said with the confidence of a man who had spent his career studying impossible problems. "The question is how. The Kalari have been using biotechnology, trying to fight biology with biology. But these devourers are designed to adapt to biological threats." Maria studied the tactical display showing their current position. They were still 6 hours away from the Kalari home system, pushing their small ship's engines to the breaking point. Even if they arrived in time, what could one human ship do against an enemy that had destroyed an entire galactic civilization? "Captain," Chun called out, his voice tight with excitement, "I'm picking up additional signals. The Kalari. Message has reached other species. Several governments are responding. What are they saying?" Maria asked. Chun's expression fell. "Most of them are expressing regret that they can't help. The Altarian Republic says they're too far away. The crystalline hierarchy is offering to preserve Kalari cultural records for posterity. The Vegan Trade Federation is asking about salvage rights." Maria felt a familiar anger rising in her chest. Humans had been part of the galactic community for less than 50 years, ever since they had developed faster-than-light travel. In that time, they had learned that most established civilizations were content to talk about principles and morality while doing nothing when action was required. "Any species actually sending military aid?" she asked. "The Centauri Alliance is dispatching a battle group, but they won't arrive for at least 2 weeks. The Andromedan Council is debating the issue in emergency session." Shun paused. "Captain, according to these responses, we're going to be the first to arrive. Maybe the only ones to arrive in time." Silence fell over the bridge as that reality sank in. 30 humans in a single ship were about to face an enemy that had destroyed one of the galaxy's great powers. It was either the height of heroism or the depth of stupidity, and Maria wasn't sure which. "Dr. Wright," she said finally, "I need options. How do we fight something that adapts to every attack?" Wright was quiet for a moment, his fingers dancing over the holographic displays as he analyzed the available data. The Devourers are silicon-based life forms with an organic coating. They're designed to consume biological matter, but that might also be their weakness. Explain. They're parasites, Captain. They need organic hosts to survive and reproduce. But what if we gave them something they couldn't digest? Something that would poison them instead of feeding them? Maria's eyes lit up with understanding. Chemical warfare. Exactly. Humans have been using chemical weapons for centuries. We know more about toxins, pesticides, and biological warfare than any other species in the galaxy. Most civilizations consider chemical weapons primitive and barbaric. Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need, Maria said with a grim smile. Rosa, what kind of chemical supplies do we have in storage? Chief Martinez pulled up the ship's inventory. We've got standard industrial chemicals, some biological research materials, and ... She paused, looking surprised. Captain, we're carrying a full load of Earth agricultural products. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, the works. We were supposed to deliver them to the farming colony on New Terra. Perfect. Maria turned to address the entire bridge crew. People, we're about to attempt something that's either brilliant or completely insane. We're going to poison an entire alien swarm using bug spray and weed killer. The crew stared at her for a moment, then broke into nervous laughter. It was such a ridiculous idea that it just might work. Over the next 5 hours, as the Determination raced toward the Kalari system, the crew worked frantically to modify their agricultural chemicals into weapons of war. Wright and Martinez led teams that jury-rigged the ship's systems to spray their makeshift toxins into space. They had no idea if their plan would work, but it was the only chance they had. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kalari system, the sight that greeted them was even worse than they had imagined. The once blue oceans of Aquatica Prime had turned a sickly orange color, teeming with millions of devourer creatures. The planet's surface was covered with what looked like metallic coral growths, the feeding structures the devourers built to process their prey. "Jesus," whispered Chun. "How many of those things are there?" "Sensors are detecting over 2 million individual organisms," reported Ensign Tim Park from the science station. "And they're all connected somehow. It's like they're all part of one massive creature." "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," Chun announced. "It's weak, but it's definitely from the Kalari." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was filled with exhaustion and disbelief. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Thera Oceandith. You must retreat immediately. The Devourers cannot be defeated. Save yourselves while you still can." Maria activated the response system. "Commander Oceandith, this is Captain Maria Santos of the Earth vessel Determination. We received your distress call. We're here to help." There was a long pause before. The reply came. "Earth, we have records of your species. You are classified as a minor power, limited technology, small population. Captain Santos, I appreciate your courage, but one ship cannot." "Commander," Maria interrupted, "with respect, you haven't seen what humans can do when someone needs help. We're going to try something different. Can you hold your position for another hour?" We ... Yes. Our shields are failing, but we can hold for a short time longer." "Good. Stay strong, Commander. Help is on the way." Maria cut the communication and turned to her crew. "You heard the lady. We've got 1 hour to save an entire civilization. Dr. Wright, Are your chemical dispersal systems ready? As ready as we can make them, Captain. We've got enough modified toxins to cover approximately 1/10 of the Devourer swarm. If our theory is correct, the chemical cascade should spread through their network and affect the entire collective. And if your theory is wrong, Wright shrugged. Then we'll have the shortest military engagement in galactic history. Maria looked out at the swarming orange mass that covered the dying planet. Somewhere down there, millions of innocent people were waiting to die, hoping against hope that someone would save them. Earth was thousands of light years away, safe from this threat, at least for now. Humanity had no political alliance with the Kalari, no trade agreements, no mutual defense treaties. By every logical calculation, they should turn around and flee, but that wasn't what humans did. All right, people, Maria announced to her crew. We're going in. Launch the chemical dispersal drones and prepare for close-range engagement. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. The determination plunged into the heart of the Devourer swarm, its modified agricultural sprayers releasing clouds of toxic chemicals into the mass of orange organisms. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Devourers continued their feeding, ignoring the small human ship as insignificant. Then, slowly, the change began. Individual Devourers started to convulse, their orange glow flickering and dimming. The effect spread through the swarm like wildfire as the shared neural network carried the poison to every connected organism. Within minutes, millions of Devourer creatures were writhing in toxic agony. On the planet's surface, Commander Thera watched in amazement as the orange tide above her city began to turn black and sink toward the ocean floor. The Devourers that had seemed unstoppable were dying by the millions, poisoned by simple earth chemicals that had been designed to kill garden pests. Across the galaxy, other spacefaring civilizations monitored the situation in stunned silence. The primitive humans had accomplished in 1 hour what the mighty Kalari had failed to do in 6 months of warfare. A single human ship had saved an entire civilization, using nothing more than agricultural waste and sheer determination. The victory at Aquatica Prime became legend throughout the galaxy. Humanity was no longer dismissed as a minor species. They had proven that sometimes the newest voice in the conversation had the most important things to say. The Kalari named humanity their eternal protectors, and other species began to seek human assistance when conventional solutions failed. But for Captain Maria Santos and the crew of the Determination, the greatest reward was simple. They had answered a call for help from strangers, and they had not been found wanting. In a galaxy full of ancient civilizations focused on their own interests, humanity had shown that sometimes the right thing to do was also the brave thing to do, and that, more than any advanced technology or massive fleet, was what made humans truly dangerous to those who threatened the innocent. Asterisk.